Hello and welcome to this month's garden tour. I would say this is the final month where it's gonna look this luscious and green. We're about to really head into fall and things will just start dying down more than they already are. You'll see a great difference from the last garden tour to this month's garden tour. Already we're seeing a lot of the summer stuff starting to die off, which is just a part of this season. And well, I guess we have new life coming up too, because we've got a lot of the seeds that we sowed last month starting to come up into little tiny seedlings and just kind of starting the next season of cold crops, which is wonderful. If we had started even earlier in the summer, we would have had lots of cold crops in big fruition right now, but we're not so on it on our gardening yet. But I'm happy to show you some of the things that are doing really well. As you can see, these Swiss chards are doing fabulous and they will actually last us all through this fall, even through winter, right up until spring. So that's a wonderful thing from the spring that's still holding on really well. Our kale over here is also doing fabulous and that'll carry us right through the winter. Now we've got beets and carrots in the ground that are ready to harvest, and we're going to leave those there and basically pick them just as we need them. We've also started succession sowing new carrots and new beets so that we have more and more coming that will be ready end of winter, continuing on into spring. So that's great crops to continue on with. We've also planted a couple of last minute beans, because beans are actually really great for the soil and they kind of act as a repairing crop that feeds the soil with a lot of nutrients. And so we've planted some, even though I don't expect them to do very well depending on how much more we have warm weather for. Still, these plants will do well for the ground and kind of feed the soil some nutrients. I've also planted some new arugula. That is the season for that to be planted. Now, butternut squashes and pumpkins are doing fabulous. I think those are my favorite this year because they're so easy to just grow. I feel like they do very well in our area and the plants look gorgeous and the crops are so rewarding. I mean, seeing these big pumpkins and butternut squashes is just, wow, I can grow this. And I know I'm not growing it. Of course, God is making it all grow, but just to think that I can put a little seed into the ground and it appears in this big pumpkins months later, that's just amazing. So that's really exciting. Flower beds are really starting to die back. That's to be expected. We're late here in the season, but still there's some last little bits of yarrow. The dahlias are still doing wonderful. Our cosmos made a small appearance this year. I was a little late in planting that. The Brussels sprouts are starting to firm up, so soon we'll be able to pick those. I've started new cabbage plants. This new crop, which is a purple orac, these are coming up nicely. I'm so excited to show you guys what this plant looks like when it's in full maturity. Now there's a lot of maintenance for us to do in the garden this summer, and we've already started weeding here and there. I know you can't really tell yet, but trust me, we have picked a lot of dying plants and weeds that have kind of taken over the garden here and there, but we've got a lot more to do. And there's this weird time of year where you're like, well, do I pick it now or do I just wait for the cold to kill it off? Anyway, we're definitely in between that, but the areas where we need to plant, I'm clearing out and cleaning up the areas. We still have more of these delicatas growing all the way up on this trellis, but you can see the plant is diseased and it's definitely starting to die off. I harvested so many tomatoes this year and you'll see there's still a few more coming. We've got so many varieties, little cherries, red and yellow, big tomatoes. Look at this one, is still changing color. A beautiful orange. We've been picking them right as they get ready to change color so that it gives more time for the other ones to ripen. We're definitely not picking tomatoes last year this time, so it's fabulous to see that there's still so many tomatoes coming up here. I recently had somebody ask me how close we plant our tomatoes, and we do plant them really close together, but I do prune them really hard at the beginning here. You can see that the base is quite bare. And then once they get kind of to the top of this trellis before it arches, I let them go wild. That just gives them a really good time to establish only two main stems. I cut off all of the offshoots. I try to keep growing, that way the plant can focus just on its two main stems for the beginning of its growing life. Now it's been so nice coming out of here and just picking onions from our garden. This is the first year where that's happened to me. And I planted these onions quite late in the season and They were from seed, so they say to start those really early and plant them quite early, and I was definitely very late on mine. But look how well they did. They're not that big, that's fine. Again, I knew I planted them late, but I'm still very happy with this harvest. As you can see, I spaced everything really close together. Like here I've got the Brussels sprouts right over top, and they were kind of small plants by the time I planted the onions, so that worked out well. Just using this space to the best of its ability. You'll see I do this all over the garden. I squeeze many things together. Look at this Brussels sprout. And some last blooming zinnias, which I'm so happy still came up despite it being so late in the season, because I hope that maybe I can see some blooms and still catch some seed from these guys. Now the big and very showy quinoa bush, which is really just flopped wide open, is just starting to change color here on its pods. I left this one, actually I didn't plant these this year, they came up kind of by accident. Or did I plant them? I don't even remember. But if I did plant them, I would have direct sowed them. I didn't start them indoors as before, and I know I didn't start them early enough if I did start them. So they're a little late, and when they're ready, these will turn a beautiful red and yellow and orange colors all mixed. So they're not quite there yet, but the leaves are starting to change colors, so the quinoa tops will follow pretty soon here. And we'll see if they make it before the rainfall comes. Wow, look at these stunner zinnias over here still producing hard. I have not been picking as many flowers here at the end of the season, but I'm happy to leave these actually because I hope I can catch some of their seed here so that I have more for next year and I can start them earlier and have a better season. But aren't they so gorgeous? Oh man. Didn't know zinnias have a great vase life, so they're a beautiful cut flower. Many varieties, they come in lots of mixes, but they also last quite a while in a vase, which is great. Planting this very last minute, and I think I expected something else, like these big yellow balls. I think this is tansy, I forget now, but anyway, hopefully I'll be able to pick some of this and dry it for the season, or maybe make a final arrangement with some of the zinnias I've got over there. We'll see, but anyway, happy to have some of these come up last minute and see what they are finally. Quick little update here on the sweet potatoes that are growing kind of on the bottom here. They're doing really well. We haven't had enough rain yet, so I'm leaving them in the ground to go as long as possible to see if we can get even just a little bit of a good sized sweet potatoes. I know they take quite a while to grow, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get big ones this year, but they did flower not too long ago, so maybe it's their time pretty soon. I don't see any more flowers, so maybe not, but we'll see how they do. Hopefully we get some sweet potatoes this year. Time for me to pick this eucalyptus because you can see the leaves are starting to change to this kind of brown color, so if I want to salvage this before the end of the year, I think I've got to cut it back down, but I just want to make sure I leave some so that it can grow again next year because I believe it's perennial in our area, so I'll just have to double check before I cut it back. Well, thank you so much for sticking around this month's garden tour, and I really hope that you've enjoyed all of the garden tours this summer, and if you haven't seen them, you can scroll back into former videos and catch a glimpse of some of the greater parts of the summer garden earlier this year. And if you like content like this, why don't you stick around, subscribe to our channel. We'll be releasing a couple more videos into the fall and winter gardening season here because, well, this is not the end of the gardening season, although the beautiful flowers and big crops are ending. We actually have a lot of other crops that are growing now, cold crops, which are some of my favorite. They're less hands-on, and always watching the cold seasons is very interesting because, you know, the period that it takes for things to grow and watching how long fall will hold on for. It's just an exciting time of year, and gardening is not over. So if you like that, please, we would love to have you stick around and catch one of the upcoming videos and have you become a subscriber of this channel. If you're not finding me in the garden, you'll probably find me somewhere in the kitchen, either cooking or baking, preserving some kind of food, or out camping somewhere, out on a trip. And I share some of those details sometimes and tips and tricks to make those easier. So yeah, we'd be happy to have you stick around to the channel.
I love the sound that these straw flowers make. It's basically paper.